They're a happy band, they're a very good band, and in the life of their town, Sherborne in Dorset, they truly play their part.
One might think that Sherborne is an unlikely place to find such a very fine band, and actually it is a very, very fine band. If one look at it in terms, say, of the Sherborne Football Club, it would be the equivalent of their playing against the Arsenal and Liverpool. They play in a very, very high league indeed.
The mayor of Sherborne is right, but on a wet day, the old band room seems a long way from the First Division. Not that they lack belief in themselves.
Let's really go in, nice attack on this first note. Watch me absolutely on the opening note.
Cyril White, musical director for 20 years.
1, 2. Somebody's coming in all over the place, right? Here we go. That must be the one who's been to the cross keys. Ready?
Well, they have faith in their ability. What they lack is a really good set of instruments. But like a dogged little football team, they've fought their way up and now rank with bands like Black Dyke, Grimethorpe, Brighouse and Rastrick. With pride, Sherborne is rediscovering its brass band traditions. Jeremy Barker.
In particular, there was one very, very fine band, which was the Sherborne Military Band. Military implying that it had reeds besides the usual brass instruments. Founded, as far as one can tell, somewhere around 1879 by a remarkable man called Samuel Beaton, who ran this band up to about 1900, and then brought it back into existence when the very fine Edwardian bandstand was built in the Pageant Gardens.
Okay.
There have been other bands too. The longest surviving one was the Boys Brigade Band. The problem was that there was an age limit. Too old at 18 they were. Cyril White was one of those who didn't want to drift away. In 1961, he became a founder of the present band.
Let's balance the chords here from the back of it. Let the bass subject come through. Okay? 1, 2.
To borrow instruments for a few months, and then we were getting better in our performance, and we saw a set of instruments advertised at Bristol, the disbanded Bristol Aeroplane Company band. So Colin Kosh, our founder chairman, and myself, we went up to Bristol. And I must say we got a good reception, because though a number of firms were putting in offers for these instruments, they felt that we had a good case, and they took a little bit of pity on us, I feel. And they sold us a set of instruments, and they threw in uniforms and music, and we had for £1,000 a good deal.
That first £1,000 was a good investment, but with only £26 in their account at the time, they prudently put their bank manager on the committee. Perhaps the band's most important engagement in the town is the Armistice Day Parade in November. These are their own people, the old soldiers, the police, who, with the band at their head, march with a swing. In a small town, memories go back a long way. Remembrance is heightened, old grief shared at the last post. At the conclusion of the service in Sherborne Abbey, under the colours of old Dorset regiments, it's an eagerly awaited tradition now that the band should play Sunset. In Sherborne, particularly with its long educational inheritance, that sense of history is always there. And today the band have played their special part in remembering those who made the supreme investment in the future. But the diary is pretty full the whole year round. Both in the town and its surrounding villages, the band plays at fêtes, leads parades, and of course gives public concerts. The industrial north has no monopoly on brass banding. And not many bands will have as president a woman, Phoebe Winch, a former mayor.
Of all the public positions I've held in Sherborne, without any shadow of doubt, the thing I'm proudest of is being president of the Sherborne Town Band. For this reason, that the Sherborne Town Band is first-rate and recognised as such at a national level, and it's one of the very few things, in fact the only thing I can think of in Sherborne, that is recognised at a national level. The other thing to remember is that these bandsmen are amateurs. They're earning their living all day, and they've achieved this degree of musical excellence and service to the community and training the youngsters and rehearsing and playing and entering contests, all in their free time.
A quarter of the band work in Sherborne's largest firm, which makes glass fibre fabric. Here, their dedication to the musical part of their life is understood and respected. Cyril White.
Many of my colleagues at work are quite envious of the fact that I have such a hobby as brass banding. The job has its own demands, but it's very, very nice to get away from the office and go and join my friends in the band, and I find this very, very relaxing.
Cyril's responsibility to the band as musical director is no greater and no less than that certain sense of dependence on each other shared by all the players.
To be in a brass band, you need to be totally dedicated. It's a very time-consuming hobby, and apart from work, it takes up most of my days.
That's John Woods, the contest secretary, who's always keeping his finger on the beat of the band world through visiting enemy territory and listening to records.
I've managed to build up quite a large record collection over the last few years, and I learn from listening to the records to see exactly how certain pieces should be played.
John's father, Morris, is actually the chairman of the band, and so in that family, their very bones must be made of brass.
Home practice is very important for every bandsman, and I get a lot of encouragement from my father. In fact, we're not the only family partnership within the band, as we have 4 pairs of brothers and 2 uncles and nephews who also play in the band. So it's quite a family concern altogether.
Banding can be enormous fun, and the music they play is no longer confined to military marches. That rather drunken-sounding trombone is all part of the West Country Fantasy. Playing in a band is a very fulfilling pastime. Tony Osborne, the band's publicity officer.
Well, I get quite a lot out of the band, mainly from being a member of the team and producing this great sound.
But Tony also finds that playing in the band is a time-consuming pastime, so much so that it's now become a whole way of life.
Now, I have to put in a great deal. I try to practice at least an hour a day, but really I'm thinking about the band most of the 24 hours in the day, except of course when I'm sleeping. But at work, when I'm flipping through the checks, I tend to beat out rhythms with the stamp.
This single-minded obsession with their hobby is the stamp of brass band players everywhere. John Cox plays the trombone and fills the role of bandmaster and deputy musical director.
Apart from the 2 regular rehearsals that we have each week, I also take learners' classes twice a week. I like to think that we're keeping new blood flowing into the band all the time. One point I always try to put over to them, and to the full band, it's no good playing well if you look scruffy. You've got to look the part. Of course, playing in the band doesn't just involve the players. The whole family has to get involved one way or the other.
Small wonder their playing is as smooth as a smoothing iron. Dear friends, this is the first newsletter of the Sherborne Town Band Supporters Club, a club that is becoming the talk of the town, a club that is growing from strength to strength. Well, since those first enthusiastic words appeared in January 1980, the club has thrown itself into many varied activities to boost the band's morale and its bank balance. This week, for example, they've put up an extra stall in the market. The chairman is Brian Downton.
Well, we were formed originally because we felt, A, they were never supported well enough at contests, primarily, because they do need a lot of support to really get the best out of them at contests. And also, of course, there's the financial side. While the bandsmen are playing, they can't be raising funds.
Ah, but they can. They don't mind blowing their own trumpets for cash. Keeping their position in the world of brass depends on it. Local organisations have been generous, but many Sherborne people might be surprised at the cost of running a brass band. They've worn through 3 sets of uniforms and the last refit came to almost £3,000. They need new instruments with a larger bore to produce a better sound. To buy those would mean raising something to the tune of £15,000 after selling their old ones. That's a discouraging amount for a band whose players actually pay £15 a year membership. But it would mean at least getting on equal terms at contests. The supporters are optimistic. Secretary Bob Jameson.
Within a year, we've raised over £2,000. We've got over 300 members, and we're going from strength to strength. And our main aim this year is to get well over 1,000 members, hopefully trying to get the whole of Sherborne to give us their support.
And the sheer excellence of their own band, the proper one that is, has been something of a revelation in Sherborne.
A lot of people locally don't realise just how good they are.
No.
They don't get enough support locally, which is a pity.
Surprised when I pick up our local paper on Thursday and read whether the band's been somewhere and what they've won. You know, you just don't think about it living here.
And I don't think we've got the support for it yourself.
I think we're very lucky to have a group of men who work so hard just to give us all so much fun, and they obviously get so much fun from it too.
it's back to reality in the Rawson Hall, where the cornet section is rehearsing their next competition test piece with a new hand wielding the baton. It's a sentimental journey back to Sherborne for their visiting conductor, son of one of the founders and a former player in the band, Paul Kosh.
Yeah, that's not right, is it? Can you hold yours?
Bands often hire a professional conductor to put them through a forthcoming contest. A public house in the centre of Sherborne has sort of adopted the band, and here, after rehearsals, the equally important social side of banding takes place. But now the talk is all of the coming contest.
Yeah, I expect they're polite when they know we're there.
I don't think they will.
And so we've got 50 seaters, so we'll probably have about 40 of the band.
Oh, to be heavily subsidised, obviously.
Well, subsidised, I think probably if we sort of set £1 a head on this work.
Looming up are the South West Area Championships at Paynton in Devon.
Listen, we got a positive chance, haven't we?
Well, you've got to think we'll be there with the prizes. We'll have a cup.
If you go, all the kids got to go there, all our young men. If they go down there with the right attitude, you see they could win this contest. You realise we could win it. You know, all you can do is sit and play the nose. Sit and play the nose.
Confident predictions made in cheerful company may not be quite so convincing in the cold light of morning. Today is the day of the contest. Most of Sherborne still sleeps as the band, with supporters club coach to follow, prepares to head west to do battle. Just like the Football League, brass bands are divided into 4 divisions or sections, with promotion and relegation between each based on results at contests. One of the band's most exciting moments in those early years was in 1965, when they won the 3rd section national finals in London. Their latest achievement has been to gain promotion to the 1st division, the championship section, and that's something they've got to live up to today. The overture Beatrice and Benedict by Berlioz is the test piece each of the bands in the championship section must play at the contest. Since this time, the band is under the professional baton of Paul Kosh. Their regular musical director, Cyril White, feels rather at a loose end.
But today is really a day off for me. I've either been playing or conducting in most of the band's contests since we formed. I must admit, I'm not feeling particularly relaxed at this moment. Matter of fact, I think I'm keyed up in just the same way as if I was playing a more active part.
On the day of the actual contest, everybody's very keyed up and probably a little nervous, although everybody tries not to show that.
I don't actually think about the piece of music which we're going to play on the day when I'm on the coach. My main concern is whether we're going to actually get there on time, because so many things can go wrong. We have broken down before now.
With a record entry of 40 brass bands looking for elbow room to rehearse in Paynton, every hut, every school hall has been taken over for a last blow. The Torbay Corporation earns the thanks of the bands for offering the Paynton Festival Theatre as the venue. Now it's the draw.
Right, the red bag is the programme number and the black bag is the order of draw.
Somebody take one out of there, please.
Number 2, Sherborne. Drawn 2. Sherborne, drawn 2.
So, Sherborne will play second. They'll be thinking hard about that. It's often thought to be a disadvantage to be playing early on in the order. The adjudicator might forget your good performance by the end. But with only 5 bands playing in the championship section today, maybe it won't matter so much after all.
Contesting is the lifeblood of brass bands. We all get tensed up. We put a lot of practice into this. And when we get on the stage, the feeling is unbelievable. When you first get on the stage, everybody is really tensed up. We're all thinking, who's going to be the first one to put in the wrong note?
The adjudicator sits out of sight in a cubicle, judging each band on their sound alone. He can't see the bands, and he doesn't know that this is Sherborne playing now.
I think I prefer either playing or conducting rather than sitting back on the edge of my seat, listening. I'm sure that some of the guys have made minor mistakes that I would have heard if I was conducting, but they certainly don't figure in the hall. I doubt very much whether they've gone through to the adjudicator in his little wooden hut. He'd be listening for a good overall sound, and it's always been my belief that to get anywhere in contesting, or certainly get anywhere in the prizes, you've got to give an interesting and pleasurable performance. I think the piece is quite demanding, and it's interesting to hear the different interpretations. I'm sure that the adjudicator will be marking or basing quite a lot of his remarks on the interpretation of this particular work.
By the time they've sat and listened to 5 bands play the same 8.5-minute piece of music, the very critical and well-informed audience, if not too fiercely partisan already, will have formed their own opinions on which band is ahead. And Sherborne has been up against some traditionally strong West Country brass. This time, Sherborne missed the top prize. They missed the second prize too. Both these go to the Cornish bands, St Austell and St Denis. But they do get a cup.
We got a good third prize, which I'm sure the band will be quite satisfied with. It'd be nice if we could have come first or second. I thought we may just have scraped in for second prize, but there you are. There's always another time, and we shall be back to have another crack at this one next year. As a band, we would dearly love to qualify for an appearance at the National Championships at the Albert Hall. Whilst this would be very nice for us, we don't feel that this is the end-all and be-all of our activities, because apart from contesting, we have a duty to give good performances at concerts. But I suppose the most important thing about it all is that we all enjoy working together to make music for the enjoyment of ourselves and our audiences.
Sherborne is a quiet country town, steeped in the past and full of the picturesque. There's no backdrop of heavy industry, mining or dark satanic milling, images that we so often associate with brass bands. And yet, here they've produced a band with enough polish to join the ranks of the best in the country. Not only that, the band plays a full part in the community. A community which, with the help of the Supporters Club, is coming more and more to recognise that they have the best of brass on their doorstep. They've found that a good social atmosphere has laid the foundations of their successful music making, both at home and away. But in the end, of course, their success has really come directly from hard work.